Okay, so I'm going to mention why do we need the height map texture. We're going to use the texture and feed it into Bullet so that it can handle the collision shape generation, which will be a height field in Bullet. Um, One thing we have to keep in mind is that in Bullet, that height field is also going to need the displacement information, the displacement amount, as well as the width of the terrain. So essentially the overall width and length, width, and height of the terrain. I don't exactly know how the displacement factor works, if it needs to be the total height of the terrain or not. I imagine that can be adjusted, but that needs to be worked out still. Um, in any case, so here's how we generate the height map, given that we have a existing mesh. One more quick comment. As I edit this mesh, the vertices don't necessarily move up and down. I can cause these vertices to overlap and to go in random directions. So that needs to be watched out for when creating these height maps, because that can mess up, especially if this goes outside of the box. If I'm running procedures that are trying to determine the height and width of this box, Bullet expects it to be a square, so if the thing that if the mesh itself is not a square, that could just mess up the alignment and the bounding, measurements, and so on. So let's just be careful about that. Okay, so first thing is I have the mesh selected, which is why it's in green. I'm going to right click and hold right click, which makes this menu appear. While still holding the right click, I'm going to scroll down to assign new material. I'm doing this because if you use the default material, you can't generate the height map for reasons that I don't quite understand, but the standard shader has some problems that prevent you from doing what I'm about to do. So I'm going to click on Lambert, not Lambert shader, but Lambert. It's going to create a Lambert 2 material. Right here under, so I'm in the attribute editor, right here under common material attributes, there's a color attribute. I'm going to click on this little checker box here, and by default it selects the texture. It's looking under the texture objects, and I'm going to go down to ramp, and I'm going to right click on ramp and say create as projection. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do under projection attributes is say fit to box. What this does is it scales the projection. So the projection is going to basically create a smooth transition or smooth color transition on the mesh from white to black. And fit to box scales the boundaries of the projection according to the bounding box of the mesh. If we change the size of this mesh, we're going to have to refit this here. So I choose fit to box, and now the thing looks, it should be the exact same height as the mesh. So now I'm going to click on, so the ramp should be visible here, but if you lose it, you should be able to find it by clicking on here under image, clicking on this arrow on the right. That'll take us to the ramp. Okay, so here under ramp attributes, there are 3 different values that are interpolated. I'm going to delete the middle value by clicking on the X on the right side. So now it'll just be from blue to red. Click on the top, click on that little blue bubble. I'm going to make that white. Click on the bottom, I'm going to make that black. Okay. Whoops. I X'd out, so it should be done. Okay. Now I believe if I go to my textured view, I'm going to turn off wireframe view, textured view. There, it looks pretty good. Now, sometimes, so when I'm on my ramp, there's an attribute for my ramp, which is, crap, I can never find it. So let's see, I'm going to go back to my, click on my mesh, go to material attributes, I'm going to click on the color arrow on the color attribute, which will take me to the projection. Click on the arrow under image on the projection attribute, which will take me to the ramp. And okay, so then on the other tab should just have the texture here. Now normally I like to turn off the wrap V and wrap view. I don't know if that actually fixes a problem that sometimes occurs, but it seems to help. Sometimes there are some weird bleeding of the texture. Sometimes the low ends of the texture start to look there's sort of the bottom of the texture, if it's black, will sometimes wrap back to white again. And the easiest way that I found so far to fix that is so we use the fit to box, but under here, if I click on this projection node object here, which is created, and then if I can click on, say, my, well, I can use the move tool, but I can also modify the translation and the scaling. So by adding very slight tweaks to this, I can get rid of some artifacts that sometimes show up on the height map. Hopefully those will probably be avoided in practice because I probably won't actually have flat sections, but it just should be known that that sometimes small tweaks on the transform attributes of that projection object can fix those artifacts. Okay, so the last step in creating the height map is to, well, first we have to bring up Hypershade. So we go Window, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. And now I need to select the material connected to the mesh, and which is connected to the ramp and the projection. Also, holding Shift, go back to my select tool, and I'm going to select this. So I have both the material and the surface selected. And I'm going to go to Edit, and here where it says Convert to File Texture, Maya Software. I don't click on the line, I click on the box just to the right of it, which gives me a few extra options. And for that, I'm just going to go down, scroll down here, and click on a TGA to be my new texture type. Say Convert and Close. So what this does, hold on, let's see, is it creates a third material, a new material. The first was the default, the second is the one with the ramp. We just create a third material using that step. Closing Hypershade window. And the third material is just a material that has a file texture attached to it. And what is that file? That's going to be our height map. So right here, there, file 1, that's our height map. So the problem I was figuring out was, okay, great, but now I have this black and white texture covering up my terrain where I want it to be probably grass or snow. So my solution, or my current idea of how to solve that, is to create a second polygon plane, just a single quad here. I'm going to assign that the same material as the let's see, assign Lambert 3. I'm going to assign it that same new material, which is just that texture. So look at that, we have the exact same thing right there. And this one, now I have the freedom to, now I'm just going to give that a new material. So assign new material. And I choose another Lambert material, and for its color I'm going to give it a file texture, and for the file itself, scroll down here, image name, I'm just going to choose a file I have, this grass large, open. Alright, so now I have the material itself, or the mesh itself, which would be passed, well, exported with FBX and then handed to the loader. And also I have this height map here, so probably I would make the height map a child node, a child mesh of the terrain node, and then instruct the loader to look in the to look at the children to find a height map node, and then use that to construct the terrain information. Now the slightly annoying thing here is if I do decide to resculpt the mesh at any point, I will have to repeat that process to regenerate this, which means I'll have to, attach the other material. I'll have to, re-export this, and create, I guess, an additional material, and then use that one as the height map, and then reassign the terrain material after I'm done. Slightly annoying, so probably best to avoid resculpting the terrain as much as possible.